So back again for the Quit Jerking Off initiative, above Jerome, rope rescue training for the crew, and then I had to bring on my buddy Brian, who I was actually did rope rescue with for nearly 10 years until I retired from it. And he and I, Clint and I worked together out there in the rescue unit, and I've talked about that before with Clint. And the reason I was looking forward to have you on here is because there was a conversation we had 2015. I just merged my business with somebody else, just took on a partner, was going at this thing as one, I didn't know how to take on a partner. What do you do in that environment, right? How do you build your business around that? And you had just taken on a new role in your work, and you had shared with me the book The Goal. And that was one of the most life-changing conversations I've ever had, and it put me on a completely different trajectory. So let's go back to that day. You remember that conversation?
Yeah, it was good whiskey. No, I do, and we've talked about that a couple of times since, and it still challenges me. Like I said, I've always wanted to have like that one conversation with somebody that was like life altering, but you don't realize it in the moment until you hear back from it a couple of years later. It's like, hey, I read this cool book. I've read a dozen books that I've suggested to other people throughout the years, and I love reading books and I love recommending them if I enjoyed them, but it's kind of like the intersection of timing and luck have to cross at the right moment for it to have that kind of impact. And probably the first and only time that might happen in my life is somebody was receptive enough to have that experience, be like, oh, I remember you pulled up your phone right away, you pulled up Amazon, you're like, done, got it, bought it. I'm like, great, good for you. I'll read it.
Yep.
And it's a great book. It's all about the theory of constraints and exploiting bottlenecks, and man, it was powerful for me too.
Well, because of how you presented it and how powerful it was, and the story you shared about it, it completely just won your presentation. I was open to the presentation. Plus, I was in a point in my life where I was like, okay, what do I do next? I don't know what to do here. I've been kind of successful with my own business. It's working. But now I got to take on somebody else and what's going on there. I have these dynamics. We have this team that he's had that I'm having to integrate into my world. What do I do with it? And the timing was perfect. I was receptive, and you had the information I needed. And when I read that, the theory of constraints, understanding bottlenecks, and really it was changing the process. I took the process and I presented a change to the process, and they didn't like it. But then our partnership, I didn't say it failed. He decided to just quit the partnership, which was the greatest thing that could have happened to my business. At the time, it sucked, but it was the greatest thing that could have happened, and I was able to implement what I learned from the goal and from that conversation with you. And it took my business. One, I had to fight the whole world to believe me that I was right. My industry is completely contrary to what my industry says that we should be doing, and we went through the freaking roof. I mean, the average person in my industry closes 3 to 4 transactions a month. I close 6.99 a day. So, and a lot of it comes from you being willing to share that conversation.
Yeah, well, you did all the hard work. You opened up the book, you read it, you took it in, and then you interpreted it in the way that would fit in for your business. Because to be honest, I didn't know too much about your business. I just knew that you were having struggles with this partner, and that maybe that wouldn't be a long-term struggle for long, other than that you just had a problem to solve. And that's why I started throwing books at people. I'm like, problem? Read a book.
I don't have a solution, but I have this.
I just can't. I can never articulate anything as well as somebody who's thought it out through a book and gone through the whole editorial process and like really give you their best shining presentation of an idea. And that's what I appreciate in books. And that's not the only book. I mean, I'm consistently reading books. I don't know. All right, so I'll anecdotally go back to 8th grade. I had this great teacher, Miss Shokuski, And she saw me dog ear a book one time, stopped the whole class solid, and she's like, "What did you do to that book?" I'm like, "Just, I didn't have a bookmark. I just dog eared it." And she's like, "That's a book." And she was like, I don't know, special. she really thought like books were like a living creature or something. That's how she kind of impacted me on it. And I can't to this day dog ear a book. I actually bought these little wooden sleeves or these little tiny little shims or whatever that I stick in there because it's just I can't destroy a book because she said it was that would me doing that and 18 other people that rent that book after me doing that would just destroy the book after a period of time. But that was my seed for appreciating books in a way, like a preservation of books. But then what you glean from those, that knowledge that you get from it, is just it's incredible. And you can't possibly read every book in an entire lifetime. It just keeps coming at you. There's one after another after another. You just told me today that he had another one that I never really even researched that he had.
Follow up to the goal.
Yeah.
Eli Goldratt's follow up to the goal is called it isn't luck, or it's not luck, something like that. And it's just literally a continuation of the story, and it opens things up in a different light, in a different direction, and the next level of what he had to do when he was faced the new problems that come from the success. And that's really the main reason we're here is you have success, but then more problems come from success. What do you do with it then? Right? And then what do you do with it? And then what do you do with it? And Goldratt seemed to have just thought it all through.
It's insane how some people come to blaze a path before us, and we just have to like walk that same path and at least figure it out on our own. Still, we're solving our own problems, but at least somebody's kind of like giving us some idea of
well, all the
direction.
answers are out there. Every answer to every question, to every problem is out there somewhere. It's just we have to ask it and seek the answer. Like we've probably been given all the answers, but the problem is if we fail to ask the question, you can't hear the answer. I was at the time being forced. I was plagued with a question, and you happened to be at the right time giving me the answer. And it wanted something you probably could have given me a different book, and it still just answered it. Just I had to crack the son of a bitch open and read it, and I hated reading up to that point. I couldn't stand it. Now it's a daily routine. Every morning I'm up. I got to read. I was sitting here this morning, this chair, 4:30 this morning, reading a book.
Huh. No kidding.
Reading a book, and it's all changed from that one meeting. And it's, I guess, the main point that we could possibly get, and these guys could back me up, is you never know who you're going to influence with even the lightest of conversation.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people miss today because we get so busy is, we were talking about it in an earlier interview about like inviting yourself into a conversation. And I've told people, like I've mentored folks, and it's like, take the meeting. I always say take the meeting. Like, I know we're all busy, and you're going to have people that invite you to things and people that want to sell you or pitch you on things. And everyone's like, oh, you don't take meetings. I completely disagree with that. Take the meeting. Make it a 15-minute meeting if you have to. Make it a 30-minute meeting if you have to. But take the meeting, because there are times that I've been like, this is going to be a complete waste of time. And I come out of that meeting and I'm like, holy crap. I'm so glad someone introduced me to an idea or a concept or a book or a new...
Or you let them into your party.
Or I let them into my party. But when you start getting into the point where you feel like you kind of have things figured out, or you've registered some modicum of success, and you're like, I'm too busy to do this, or I'm too busy to do that. You really start to become, I think, a little bit closed off, and you don't get the book, you don't get the knowledge, you don't get the new concept or the introduction of the new idea that might change your paradigm a little bit and your way of thinking. So I've never read the book that you guys are talking about. I'm happy to do it. The book you were reading this morning, I was like, oh my God, I give that book it's called Leadership and Self-Deception. It's like one of my prerequisite books for anyone who's going to be in an executive level position in one of our companies. I'm like, you have to realize the impact that you have on people and the responsibility that you have in the condition in your life in general. Like, no one else is responsible for the game you play. It's your game, you're playing it, and the results are yours. So people can either disengage from that and say, I'm just kind of a victim, or I'm where I am because I can't control the things around me. BS. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. And some people are like, they hear that and they're like, they feel like they're stuck because of that statement, but it's a very freeing statement. If you are exactly where you're supposed to be, you also have the power and the freedom to choose where you're going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the power and the freedom to choose where you are an hour from now and what you're doing with your time and your energy. So I'd love to read the book. I can relate to the concepts, but I'd love to get a little bit more information on it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. I absolutely hate victim mentality. I cannot stand it. We had to go through this exercise in our business recently of kind of redefining our core values. We took the whole pandemic and slowed down a business as a way to kind of recalibrate who we are, how we do business, and who we conduct business with, and who we embrace as employees as well. And it all boils down to core values. And one of the core values that popped up, in fact, I think, Aaron, I reached out to you too. I was asking you, describe me in 5 words. And that was kind of the exercise trying to figure out what my core values are.
I know it's 2, but
right.
It's hyphenated.
But one of the core values came out as, solve problems. That's something I want. That's important to me. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My grandpa made axles for Ford and GM in Michigan. My uncle started a Flexall 454, which is like he bought a chemical off of a horse racing guy that warmed up horses with it. He's like, I can put that on people's muscles, and he worked with a doctor and made it a whole thing. And I worked with him in the warehouse, capping these things off. So I've always been at the ground floor of the entrepreneurial stuff, and watching them creatively come up with solutions day in and day out, just being slapped with roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and them just figured out, it was like water down a river around a big boulder. It didn't stop it. It just moved around it, from a Taoist perspective or whatever. But when I encounter people that, what was me, I really turn off. I'm like, I don't have calories to burn on trying to convince you that is not your final destination. It is if you decide to, but I can't subscribe to that. I can't invest any energy into that until you want to refocus. And like Aaron was at the bar that one night, it was, hey, try this book out. I'm on it. You were not a victim at that point in time. You were basically ready to solve your own problem.
Actively seeking a solution to the issue.
And then you mentioned taking the meeting, which I thought was interesting too, because I'm kind of an introvert. I really don't. If anybody's ever worked in retail, I don't know how much in this group is.
Folded jeans at the Gap.
So.
Yeah.
That's miserable.
You ever seen the jean wall at the Gap? It's a thing of beauty. From a retail perspective.
Yeah.
Is the Gap still open for business after COVID? Who knows?
Yeah. But just dealing with the general public day in and day out, it's like, wow, I think George Carlin had a joke about, the average dumb person. Think about the average dumb person, and the average is the middle ground. That's the middle point. There's half the population that you think is dumb is even dumber than that, and then whatever fares in between there. But I mean, that's kind of retail, and my experience in general was like, how do you put your food into your mouth and make it a day-by-day decision? And it's that's the paradigm I think of when people come at me with a victim mentality. The take the meeting part's interesting because, again, I'm an introvert, but I don't mind having a conversation with somebody where I think there's a mutually beneficial thing that could potentially happen. I had the fortunate position of I worked in technology for a long time, so I worked at a law firm for a while. And in a law firm, all the attorneys, they sell their soul to the work. They have no personal life.
Yeah.
They work, 15, 20-hour days. It's ridiculous how much they're in the office all night long. But they're all millionaires, and some of them are older. I went to the older guys, and I offered to take them out to lunch. And I just wanted to pick their brain. I wanted to figure out what makes you tick, what makes you, your intelligence is beyond just the legal mind, but just the way you think is not normal. Why are you not thinking normal? And why are you successful at not thinking normal? And it was fun. I would buy their lunch. I'm buying millionaires lunch. And I was happy to do that. I'm like, I'm barely making, enough money to feed my kids. But I'm like, I knew there was something of value or a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow to try to figure that out. And they would have that non-victim mentality. They would, be able to talk about the creativity aspect of their business and being, thinking outside of the box, and not, you see something before you. There's a problem. That's okay to problem solve it for what it is, but think about another way around it.
Yeah, flank it.
Flank it. Look at it from a different perspective.
Good lawyers can do that.
Yeah. You see
Mediocre lawyers just tell you it can't be done.
Right. Yeah. And
I detest that statement. Rizzo actually gets. She's like, I'm never going to tell you that you can't do something. So I'm going to find a way to go damn do it. Sometimes you get hurt. You're going to find a way to do it.
One of my favorite business stories, and I don't think I've told you guys this one yet, was I was at a hotel, and I was at a Wynn hotel specifically in Las Vegas, and I was at a private event, and Steve Wynn was there, and he was sitting by himself at a table, and he had his security with him, and I think he had his wife at the time with him, and I was like, nobody's talking to him, and there's business owners and people around him, no one's talking to him. I'm like, I'm gonna talk to him. So I go to there's a buffet lunch or whatever. I go grab a wrapped brownie, and I walk over to the man and I say, here's a brownie. I go, no king should eat alone in his own kingdom, is what I said to him. He said, pull up a chair. And I sat with Steve Wynn for an hour, and he was literally slapping me on the leg and telling me all these stories. And one of the best stories he told me was when he was building the Wynn Casino in Las Vegas, he had a vision in his mind about the way he wanted the casino floor to look. Open, expansive, inviting, not closed off and busy. And the building is built, if you've ever seen the building, it's an architectural masterpiece. It's built in a way that it kind of swoops to the right, and all the experts in the world said you can't do that without this big pillar in the middle of the casino floor. And he's like, unacceptable. No, I don't want any beams in the middle of the casino floor. So he said, go back and try again, and go back and try again. And it was years of designing this casino. And ultimately they designed a new type of steel that could span the width of the casino floor, all because he refused to accept something other than his vision. And it was an awesome story, and there were a couple other really funny anecdotes we might get into in another episode. But I was just sitting there going, man, this guy, thousands and thousands of employees. He's spending an hour with me talking about the way to get people around. Sometimes your experts aren't your friends, and they're going to tell you that it can't be done. And
sometimes people just want to have it over.
Path of least resistance.
Right, just here, accept it and move on. Yeah, here, take your gap jeans. And don't have that other brand. And
it's happened to us and my business partner and I in our business. People are you can't do that. I'm like, why not? Well, almost sometimes we're too stupid to know. It's we buy a company and we're like, well, why are we doing it that way? Well, that's the way it's done. I'm like, well, that's retarded. Let's do it a different way. And they're like, you can't do it that way. And I'm like, watch us, So take the meeting, because you're gonna learn things from people who are a lot our favorite saying on the show, if you're the smartest guy in the room, find a new room. Surround yourself with people who have things to offer, and stay open and be a continual life learner. You read probably more than me. I try to read. I don't read a book every day, but I read every morning. And I think that's a good habit to get into. But don't close yourself off. The idea of being unstoppable is something that we try to encourage with our employees. It's everyone's going to tell you no, but find a way around the rock. Be a river. Find a way around the rock.
So, Brian, continuing education is definitely a standard for you, but there's a lot more going on in your world. So tell us a little bit more, because I know you're working a full-time career, you're building a new business, you're volunteering with Search and Rescue for the Sheriff's Department. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on there. Tell us what's driving you. How's your business doing? What are you working on?
Well, we're we're kind of smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, so business is, obviously taken quite a bit of a hit.
But your approach to your business is not taking
No,
a hit.
no.
You're working overtime on it.
Yeah,
Because of
absolutely.
this
It's
downtime.
time to double down on that. It's again that goes along with that victim mentality that I don't subscribe to. It's an opportunity. I look at every problem. People fear change. You notice, like, you go to the gym, people select the same locker, people park in the same parking spot. They love routine, sameness, Groundhog Day. It's secure. There's no surprises. I don't like that. I like to do something different every time. As chaotic as that makes my world, I like to take things like the pandemic and where's the opportunity in that for me? The change is something that's radically changing for people immensely. It's affected everybody in the whole world, globally.
It's like the old saying, if things don't change, things don't change.
But they're always changing. If they're not, you're lying to yourself.
Well, no, but I get that. But I'm saying, if you're trying to keep the same thing, your life will never be different.
Sure.
You stay on the same boring ass trajectory.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how to answer that question other than the fact that we take the blows that we get and we make lemonade out of lemons, basically. So we took the downtime to hire a business mentor, recalibrate our systems, because we were, prior to that hitting, we were extremely way busier than I'd ever anticipated. And we were up to about 22 employees, and each one of them were working long shifts, and it was the best description I've ever heard is like having the tiger by the tail. It was a crazy ride, and we just kind of dealt with one blow after another. You didn't know what the next day was going to bring, but it was exciting to see what would happen. So when everything kind of died down for a while, it was like, hey, let's recalibrate. Let's figure out, we had all these things chaotic. How do we make order out of chaos? So let's hire a business mentor. Let's try to figure out how we can build better systems, because I certainly don't have the smarts to do that, but somebody else has already figured out this, built this wheel. So let's lean on them, and I'll pay a small price for admission to learn that. But it's been a tremendous boost to us. We were having a hard time finding quality employees, and this guy kind of pulled us out of that and said, look, we started learning how to do like group interviews, and we put out ads, and we changed our ad that were core value based ads. Instead of like, you're able to lift 50 pounds, you're able to work 8-hour shifts, it was like, we don't even describe, our job applications don't even describe that. It's just all core value based. Are you
Mission and core values.
Yeah. Do you like to solve your own
Because
problems?
you can train people.
Do you
on
have
that.
integrity?
Right.
Are you it's all of our core values are in our job ad, and the people that respond to that, it resonates with them. And then we do group interviews. So our interviews are every Monday or Tuesday afternoon. We do one at 9 and 4 in the afternoon. This is what we did during the this is one of our systems, and it's changed everything for us. Instead of hiring out of desperation and just taking the first person that's willing to push them up, because we own a cleaning business, push them up across the floor, it's more like, now I got to hire a caliber of person. And going back to book references again, because I'm going to do this all the time, there's a great book called Top Grading. It's about A, B, C, and D players, and you're constantly replacing your C and D players with A and B players. So that's the system that we're starting to build is group hiring, bringing in good people, and then replacing the ones that just don't quite fit our core values and our business model, or aren't on board with what we're trying to achieve. So that's what we've been.
How did you find your business coach? What's his name?
The same principles he's teaching us. His name is Mike Campion. He's up in northern Phoenix. So there was a bonus that he was actually geographical. He's actually probably the third or fourth mentor that we interviewed that we just didn't seem like it was a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's like, I only do residential, and she's like, what you're doing is commercial. And even though we're at that point in time, we were in 1,500 residences every month. I'm like, I'm in residences. She's like, yeah, but you have commercial accounts with property management groups, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. I feel like I'm arguing semantics with you, but I need a mentor. And obviously, you're saying you're not the right fit. Fair enough. So we'll move on. And
so you're not
figure out
right.
something
Not
else.
the
People
right
tell
fit.
you who they are, believe them.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these people have been pretty square as far as, this is what I do, this is who I am, and if we're the right fit, we're the right fit. If we're not, we're not. And I'm like, Fair enough. I appreciate that. Again, integrity is one of my big top ones. If I sense there's a lack of integrity, I'm moving on. So we found this guy, and he was marketing to us via our pain points, and that's what he teaches you how to market yourself as. And we were talking about that earlier about how to find your clients. You just got to learn what their pains are, because you can imagine what their pain is, but unless you actually have the conversation with them and you ask them, what's keeping you up at night? What's bothering you? Why did you fire your last cleaning company? Because I had to clean up after them. Oh, really? Now that's my new marketing message. You tired of cleaning up after your cleaning company? I get calls for that now because I'm resonating with his problem, resonates with 12 other people in the same position as he has.
Well, that and because your competition is out there working with other people,
Yeah.
right? And they're causing the same problem. Speaking of cleaning, like I remember, you may or may not remember this conversation, but it stood out to me because something came to me at that conversation that I didn't know before until it came out of my mouth. You had mentioned how your wife was out, she'd do work during the day, but then go clean at night, do other jobs, and you're like, how do I get her to stop doing that? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember the answer?
She had to go through the pain first, kind of like a gauntlet, I suppose, of kind of growing through that and hitting a brick wall. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't scale myself. I can't multiply myself and do this anymore. Her and I would both go out. She did a lot of them first, and then we'd go out together. And I'm like, this is, I can't grow a business if I'm working in the business, not on the business. So it was that epiphany that you had to move away from, the hands-on and the need to have the reins. She had to have utter, total control. Like, I'm the only one in the world that can clean the house this good. And I said, that's a skill you can train to people. I know that you can do this, because if you're the only one that can do this, then we've got a job. You don't have a business.
Yeah, I remember when you were telling me that you were trying to get her. It's like, how do I convince her to quit? The best answer I can give is like, tell her she's a damn thief.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And you're like, what? And it's like, she's a damn thief. She's stealing not only somebody else's job, but then a second person's job, because she's doing 2 of those in a night, and then she's stealing somebody else's job because she's not getting more jobs. She's literally stealing from other people, lots of people.
Yep.
By not doing what she is best suited for. When we don't act and become what we are meant to become and give opportunity to others, we become thieves. And when you asked me that question and I gave that answer, that was when I decided myself to start offloading certain parts of my business that I was doing. And I went from, at the time, I think I had 9 employees. When we talk about that, I have 22 now. And it all started from you asking me a question, me giving you an answer, and then me listening to the damn answer. It's like, crap, I do the same thing. So I've been slowly offloading things and training people to take other parts of it. And other parts, to the point now, I eventually going to have myself only having 10-minute calls a day, and that's it. And I'm completely out of my business. I'm going to do other things that are going to drive the business, but I'm not doing the day-to-day. So in the same respect, again, you coming to me with something brought an answer that funneled through me, but literally benefited both of our businesses.
So we should meet more often.
Yeah, we probably. Yeah, it's time to sit
Come
down
on,
a little bit more.
That was a major paradigm shift. I'm so proud of my wife for figuring that out and finally getting to that point where she was okay with delegating.
It's hard to do.
And letting others
It's tough.
fall on their own.
She should be proud of that.
It's almost like a parental obligation. You feel like you don't want your child to fall, but sometimes you got to let, for them to learn how to walk, you have to let them fall a couple times. And I'm not saying I let my wife do that, but I'm just saying, in general, where the business where you want to have a stranglehold on every little aspect, sometimes you have to relinquish that control to other people, and it's not going to be as perfect as you would probably try to execute it, because no one's going to be as good as what's in your mind's eye of what you want it to be. But to allow that, give them the leverage to do that, the right person, the right skills, the right time to do that, they can.
Well, their dating app post always will be a high level thing, and then you go out with this.
My business partner and I joke, I'm like, if we can hire someone to do it 80% as well as we can do it, we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not going to be the way we would do it, but that's okay, because if that person can do that thing at 80%, I can now not do that thing at all.
Yes.
And it'll still get done. And
sometimes
but I
they
do-
do it in a different way that makes it even better.
it does.
Something
Yeah,
you
that
never would've thought of.
absolutely happens.
Yes.
What I think is the most difficult thing to do is to make the transition from a business that you're working in to one that you're working on, which we talk. People talk about that phrase a lot in business, but it's so incredibly hard to do without systems.
Yes.
And I use the word systems like all the time now. It's like it's the gift of systems. It's like, how do we answer phones? How do we open the door for? How do we onboard people? How do we hire? How do we do these things? Everything is a system, and if it's broken, it's either a system problem or a people problem. It's either an ABCD or type employee issue, the old Jack Welch rank and yank kind of deal, where you're constantly top grading, or you have a broken system and you don't even really know what your intention is behind what you're doing, and that's a leadership problem. That's a people problem. That's you. That's on you as the owner. So if you can give the intention correctly and create a system around it, and then offload it, that's a thing of beauty, right? Because things then, like Aaron likes to say, I want to make myself obsolete in my business. That's the level of business of being able to literally make yourself not important. That's because that means you have freedom to do what things you want to do, which are important. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So.
And some people, I think there's a paradigm shift that needs to happen from like a sole proprietor's perspective of I gotta entrust something that I held near and dear to let somebody else do that. And then in my mind, what I think of is like, well, would I appear lazy that I don't want to do that? I'm too good for that. I'm a hands-on person. I will dig right in and I'll sit there shoulder to shoulder. I cannot ask somebody to do a job that I can't do myself, shoulder to shoulder with them. But like you going back to the thief analogy, that could be somebody else that could be earning that living for you, and then you could actually be figuring out a way to bring more business so they could make more money and
do what you're good at.
You know what I mean? When I stopped being able to
Be a rainmaker.
when I stopped being involved in all the little steps that we were talking about back then, it's right when I started first merged that business, I was doing 60% of the business, of the work on it, if not more, actually probably 70. Now I do less than 10%. I went from 10, 12 transactions a month to 120, 130, and life isn't near as frustrating as it was back then. I mean, it has its own frustrations, don't get me wrong. I mean, it still is an asshole for it's a huge asshole, but not to the extent that it was before. For me to grow 10% in that would have been another 1.3 deals. That 1.3 deals would take a lot more time to do. A lot more time than it is for me to add another 50 deals. It takes less time to add 50 deals for me now than to do 1.3.
Think of it like pushing a car, a stalled car. You're trying to start it up, you got to get it to a certain speed where somebody can pop it into gear, right? And that first initial push, 2 or 3 of you behind the bumper just push, and it's so much energy just to get the inertia of that car to move forward a few feet. But once you get 10, 20 feet, you're ready to get that first gear pop to happen, or second gear, whatever, and you've got that inertia going. And that's the struggle I think you're kind of talking about, is just that it takes so much energy to get to that momentum, and then it's ready to go. I mean, it's like now you're.
Then it's on its own. You better run to the driver's seat.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's the
Somebody
bitch will
better be
take
in
off
there
and end up in the
steering.
ditch if you're not behind the freaking wheel. That's
Yeah.
the other part of it, is people think, all you gotta do is get it going. No, now you have to chase the sumbitch and dive into it. Because if you don't, your ass is left. And it's gonna run off into someplace else.
I love analogies. It makes complex things understandable. I worked in technology for a long time, and sometimes there was 2 types of people I helped, either those that just wanted it fixed or those that really wanted to understand how it got fixed. And the only way I could kind of get that bridge crossed is to just give them an analogy.
Yeah.
And that helped, tremendously in my career, as far as like just helping, not dumb it down, but make it understandable for people that
People think
could
differently,
relate
so
it
yeah,
to a different way. Yeah.
People
sometimes you gotta say
people
it.
get annoyed with me a lot of the times though when I start asking, like, even today it was like, what's that abbreviation? What, like, and they're like, well, it's a 3 to. I'm like, what's the actual ratio, or like, and I, at risk of sounding like an idiot sometimes, but I actually want to know why. I don't just want to know how. I want to know why it works that way, because knowing why will oftentimes lead to doing it potentially a different way that might be better at some point, if you have a real, true, fundamental understanding of what you're up to.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I actually love that you asked that question today, because I actually learned something. I've been in rope rescue for almost 11 years now, and you just asked a very simple, nascent question about something simple and basic. I think it was 3-to-1 versus 2-to-1.
It's like 3-to-1. I was like, why is it called that? I'm like, what do you mean? And even the one where it's like divide by 15, I'm like, so it's a 15-to-1 ratio for power? I'm like, hang on, back up, break it down for me. Tell me what it means. And he's like, yeah, no, it's, and then someone chuckled in the room, it's a 3-to-1 power. I'm like, but is that because of the length of the rope, or is that because of the number of pulleys, or like, what are we talking about here? And then I can go like, now I can do the math on everything else, hopefully.
Yep.
I can't tie a knot yet, but we'll figure that out later. But
You made a good run at him.
if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot.
Exactly. So we have one question we ask everybody. I'll give Clint the opportunity to ask it, because this is to us really the pinnacle for everybody. This is the deciding factor for many folks. So the question we asked.
What was the worst thing that's happened in your life? It turned out to be a turning point, and in the end, it was for the best.
Wow, I can think of a couple things. I think when I was younger, I was dating this girl, and her father had just passed away, so she was going through some emotional stuff. And I was really into this girl, right? And then she just started. There was a time we were up at Christopher Creek, and some 4-year-old kid was walking by the car, and she rolls down her window and she dropped an F-bomb. What the F are you looking at? I was like, that was uncalled for. I was very angry, and a week later I decided to go camping on my own and kind of spend some time, and I'm like, what are my choices? Why am I don't understand. Something's wrong in my life. Why did that bother me so much? And then I walked away from that solo trip by myself. One, it was the epiphany that was the end of that relationship. I really liked her, but it tore me apart that I knew it wasn't compatible any longer after that point. She had some things that she had to deal with, and I wasn't going to be able to help her with that. Not my point. But two, what I walked away from was kind of a growth of what I call, and I drill this to my kids now, is I call it the relentless pursuit of happiness. And it's not, I don't like step on people's head to be happy, but it's more or less whatever happens, whatever problems I encounter that are coming at me that I always resisted. Like, I always felt secure in a relationship. This was now exposing me to a point where I had to ditch that relationship voluntarily. Up until that point in time, I was never the volunteer. I was always the guy that got dumped, right? And then I was the woe is me, and then go through the depression until I found a new relationship. So this is my first relationship where I was the dumper.
You made a choice.
Yeah, I made the choice. And it was empowering in a way that I realized that I now have the choice to make myself happy. Whatever I need in life is my choice. And if I want to dwell on that victim mentality and just sit in that bottom of that barrel and weep in my own tears and drown in them, that's up to me to make that decision. And I call that the relentless pursuit of happiness. If you ask my kids about it, they'll roll their eyes because they're
They've heard
tired
it so
of
many
hearing me
times.
drill that into their
Well,
head.
I love that you identified a problem in your life, and you went to self-reflection. You went on that camping trip by yourself. You said, how did I get here? Why am I here? What needs to change? Because I'm about that. I love that when things aren't going my way, I need to turn it around and look in the mirror. Why am I here? What got me here? What decisions did I make? Why am I allowing myself to be here? Not blaming others, not taking on that victim mentality.
Yep, we start all of our business meetings with our office managers and stuff with not talking about the problems. We say, what are your celebrations? What are you happy about? What did you accomplish? focus on
See,
those power.
yeah, when I
moments.
was in a leadership role, something similar, people would come to me. Employees always want to come with problems. Come to me with solutions. You already know their problem, and you probably have a solution in your head. So let's just start with your solution and brainstorm that.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
'cause it's gonna work better for them because they're the ones that have the problem.
Yep. I go with the Socratic method. When somebody comes at me with a problem, I don't give them this. I know the solution in my head, what I would say, but I pull myself back. Normally, in my younger self, I'd be like, do this, this, and this, and then be gone with you and let me finish what I'm trying to finish over here.
Give them a fish.
But the Socratic method is to just ask them that question. Well, that sounds like an interesting problem. What would you think about solving that? You know, and I just put it back in their lap, and then just kind of let them be the spitball with me and figure out what that problem.
Yeah, 9
might
times
be.
out of 10, it's only a problem in their mind, and
Yeah.
they have the solution. So
Yeah.
let's hear it.
Or they come up with a unique solution that I would have. That's even better than what I thought of. Hey, run with that. That sounds great. And that's empowering.
I agree. We have a problem. You have the solution. Let's run with it and try it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like you just said, the unique solution comes about that you may have never thought of, right? Or they're going to see things from a perspective you didn't see it, or they're the ones that created it. Therefore, they can see it from, or they have an angle that there's no way you would see because you weren't there during the creation period, right? So, asking somebody to solve, or at least getting their input, is way more important than giving them the input, because it's amazing what you learn yourself when you take the time and allow somebody else to impart on you. Because, man, sometimes we take that leadership role and we think we're supposed to be just raining down all this stuff on top of them. A lot of times I get more from just shutting up and listening and getting what those around me who are doing the job share with me, and I actually learn how to do my job better for them. And if I'm able to do my job better and they're able to do their jobs better, damn, everybody just keeps benefiting.
Yep. Yeah, because if you spoon feed them all their life, they're just going to keep coming back to you for the answers. And
All you have is
now you're the dependency.
All you have is that stray dog that keeps coming back on food.
Yeah.
That's really it. It's
Yeah.
like, how do I get rid of this damn dog? That's what you end up doing. You end up losing an employee. You end up having a hole in your situation. Let them become part of the solution, become part of the whole process. So we appreciate you staying up and hanging
Yeah.
with us tonight.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Tomorrow I got to get up early. We got to go get back on the ropes, and we'll get you back out again so we can do some other cool stuff. The Jeeps or the
Sure.
or
Shooting.
whichever.
Whatever.
Cool.
Brian, it's been really good to get to know you a little
Yeah,
better too, man.
thanks for having me.
It's been awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
So, this one, guys. Not only, of course, we got to tell you to quit jerking off. Everybody needs to quit that. And if you have quit, stay on the path. Don't go back into it, right? And then be willing to ask other people questions that you already have the answer to yourself. But sometimes they have to find it within themselves before they can hear the answer that they needed to hear. So thanks, man.
For sure.